Hello, BookTube, and it's Thursday, and I'm here with some books, some new books, a book haul. Last time I was actually out because of the lockdown was around the beginning of March. I should have actually looked on my book hauls because I would have been able to pinpoint it was a Sunday. But I've gone out. I went out again this afternoon. Bookshop is open for appointments only. Can have a couple people in because it is a big place, and you can stay, at a good 2 meters or more apart from each other. Sort of if you sort of walk down one aisle and the other person walks down there, and then you could come out and so forth. You just have to coordinate things. So it was a good afternoon. I bought more than I wanted to, um, but most of them are bargain books again that were a pound, £2, except there were a few that were a little more expensive. But before I get to those, I just wanted to. I've been a bit absent on BookTube for a while. The last 3-4 weeks have been a bit tough for me. I've had a problem with my leg that's sort of been ongoing for several weeks now, and still not fully right. I need to get more antibiotics for it. And it was a tough day actually going out today. I should have postponed it, but I am glad I did it in the end. Um, my eyesight went a bit wonky for a while, and I think that was the allergies and the heat, and it's getting hot now again. I used to in Canada have I dealt and worked in outside in like 30 plus 35 degree Celsius weather. I just couldn't do that now. I'm struggling with high 20s and not working and not doing anything. I'm struggling with that. But the last couple weeks have been very challenging. Last week, they decided to resurface the road outside, so they had construction crews out here from 8 p.m. to about 5 a.m. Well, 5 a.m. And just grinding up the old asphalt. Just there's no sleep whatsoever. And then once they leave, a few hours later, I had to start work all day. So I was lucky finishing at 5. I got like two hours, maybe 3 hours sleep before they started again. So that went on like Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, and Thursday night last week. Thursday night last week, it wasn't so bad because they were further down the road finally, and it was quieter. So I had a respite for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday night, thinking that would be it. But no, 8 o'clock, roll up, jackhammer starting. They're cutting through. Don't know what the hell they've been doing. So it's been 3 nights in a row so far. So this is Thursday. I expect they'll be back somewhere again tonight, but hopefully down further down the road. It's very difficult. It's not a rich area here, so that's what it is. Like you wouldn't. There's no way they'd be doing it outside the mayor's house. You can guarantee that. But anyway, enough of that. Let's get to the books. I've got a number of uh, of books on London, which was kind of nice to pick up. So a couple of these, the first two I'll show have been there's been repairs to them. Spine has been put back on a rebacked, done in sort of a library style, but it is still quite nice. And you can see where there's staining of tape, and that's why I say never, ever, ever, never use tape because it just deteriorates very, very quickly. At least a normal tape, unless it's going to be archival tape, and then think heavily of it as well before you do it. I know it's sometimes easier to, or it seems to be easier to, if it's for flapping off, you put tape over it, but in the end, it's bad news. It's bad news. You may not want to, uh, or had plans of selling the book, but books do get passed on, and I don't know. I just like when my books get passed on, I don't want them to be destroyed in any way. I like the aspect here that they've done the corners, and they've done all four corners. Except it would have been nice maybe to do there as well, because that's fraying. They could have done like a whole edge, which would have looked maybe funny, but But anyway, it's quite nice. The subject is the electoral history of the borough of Lambeth since its enfranchisement in 1832, with portraits and memoirs of its representatives during the 46 years by George Hill, and 1879, Stanford and Company, Charing Cross. And it was a library copy of the Clapham Southwest, and the nonsense on the back of the title page. I mean, the back the copyright page. And yeah, it looks quite nice. I kind of like this aspect too. Is that the portraits they show are all tipped in; they're glued on to the pages. So that was kind of nice. And there's a number of those. You can see there. So that'll be interesting, and it will stay in that condition for a while too. Another one, again, some help has been done. The spine has obviously deteriorated on this originally, but they kept where it said it was the date, the authors, and the title, leather, put on top of more leather, and rebacked, as I say. It's signed by the author and inscribed, but I can't quite make out what the inscription is at the moment. There is some writing in it, but it is an ex-library too, so having one and then the bit of the other, not too big of a deal. The full title is The Inns of Old Suffolk and Their Associations by William Rendell, FRCS, and Philip Norman, FSA, Longmans Green and Company, New York, 1888. Now, as you noticed, or you may have noticed on the spine, that says Old Southwark. Well, that's how it's printed, for those that aren't aware of it. But the pronunciation is Suffolk. Suffolk. Or I always get it wrong, but it's something to the effect of Suffolk. How you do that, don't ask me. But it's not Southwark. There's a lot of strange things like that in England here. So just be ready. Once you think you know the pronunciation of something, because you pronounce it the way it's spelled, you can be pretty damn sure you're probably wrong. But yeah, this is about the inns, and I have a big interest in inns. They've had it for quite a while, and I got a really good deal on it. So I decided to splurge a bit today. And there's only a few expensive things. Well, they weren't expensive, but most of what I got here were £1 and £2. So anything even £8-10 is expensive compared to that. Let's see here. I got one sort of fiction type thing. Well, it is not fiction type. It is fiction. It's short stories by Osbert Sitwell. It's a collection called "The Death of a God." It's probably in, like, I got a large collected short story, so most of it might be in there. But I just loved the cover, and it was cheap, so we'll go with my Sitwell collection. And this is a first edition, 1949, by Macmillan and Company. Another Sitwell, Splendors and Miseries. It's, as far as I can tell, it's like sort of a collection of essays. It's a bit odd because I'm not sure if a lot of them you would call them essays, but they're nonfiction writing as far as I can tell. Again, wonderful jacket and spine with some chipping at the bottom, but then the same panel on the back. And it's just wonderful. This is the paper, Second World War production, 1943, I think it is. 1943. So it's right at the heart of paper production in the Second World War. So it's not the best, but it's in some ways it's better than it is today. But that's another discussion there. Another author I truly like is E.V. Lucas. Not 100% sure what this is. Um, See, it says here Mr. Lucas's readers will remember that his two latest stories, Windfall's Eve and its sequel, Down the Sky, are concerned with the friendship of Jenny Candover and Richard, the narrator. The present book, in which these characters appear again, make no pretense to be a story. It is just a commentary on life, amusing, serious, and very frank from the point of view of these two spectators. Sounded kind of interesting, and I do like him. For some reason, there's a card in there. I do like the way this is done. It's cloth on the spine, and it's got the paper label glued on, and paper label glued on the front. A nice little thing with this is in the back, which happens to some publishers, is an additional spine label, which I always like when I see that. I've never reused one, even though I've got a few that it's chipping off, but this one's in perfect condition, and that'll go with my Lucas collection. And I won't be reading this until I get this Windfall's Eve and Down the Sky. I might have Windfall's Eve. I'm not sure. Another one. This is the last of sort of the non 1 pound, 2 pounders. And this is the Goshen Peoples of South Africa by Isaac Shapira. And it was published by George Routledge and Sons in 1930. It's sort of an anthropological, ethnographical study of the Bushmen and Hottentots. The Bushmen are really the Sand peoples, and the Hottentots, if memory serves, is Khoikhoi, is their, I think, their proper ethnographical name. I'm not sure. I'm interested in South Africa, especially. It's pre-European history as well, which includes these peoples, as well as other Bantu or other groups like the Zulus, which are I think they might be. Yeah, I'm sort of forgetting the sequence of events. It's been a while since I've read it, so I won't muddle things up here. But this book is the property of the Society for Propagation of the Gospel in Foreign Parts in Tufton Street, London. And I'm assuming the number on here is the number of acquisition, and it's 17,637. Would have been interesting to know what other books they had. But yeah, it's not. It's, as I say, it's an anthropological ethnographical study. It is 1930, so obviously the terms are going to be a bit different than now, and a lot more research has been put into these peoples since then. But I do like his writing. I do like him. He edited a lot, not a lot. Well, the last journals of David Livingstone, his family letters, and a number of other Livingstone-related material that he edited, as well as a number of books on South African people or African peoples, and I don't know if he's highly thought of. I don't know much about him. It would be something that I wouldn't mind having a biography of him at some point, because I've only sort of piecemeal over the years, after seeing his name and knowing that he edited Livingstone, that I've picked up a couple of things by him, and I'm interested in him. But again, it's one of my interests that have waned for a while, and I pick up stuff as and when I see them on Africa, which I have no idea if I'm going to get back to them. I hope to at some point get back to looking into these areas. But now we get into the cheaper books here. This is the ubiquitous, sort of, in some ways, the Oxford Book of. And this is the Oxford Book of Supernatural, edited and chosen by D.J. Enright. It's 550 pages approximately. It's very heavy, heavier than I would have thought for that. So it's heavy paper. It's coated paper. It was done in 1994, and it's got magic and magicians, possessions and exorcisms, spells, witchcraft, devils and angels, hells and heavens, vampires, werewolves, zombies and other monsters, fairies and little folk, art and intellect, dreams, coincidences, telepathy, sex and the supernatural, animal stories, near-death experiences, high spirits and low, believers and disbelievers, on reading and writing about the supernatural. And I do like these, and I do pick them up when I see them. This is sadly only volume 1, but it was cheap enough to get. It's the writings of William Blake. And I thought it was a death mask, but it says it's from Life Mask of Blake. It's the Nonsuch Press, 1925. Edited in 3 volumes by Jeffrey Keynes. This is volume 1. And it's got black and white illustrations of Blake. So, and it's nicely laid out. So it would be nice to get the rest of the volumes eventually. I actually didn't realize it was volume 1 until I got it home, so but oh well. Here's a series. We've seen a few of the volumes before. It's called Highways and Byways. And these happen to be in Surrey, this one, with a dust jacket, which is the first one I've had with the dust jacket. There's spotting on the front page edges, but the jacket is quite nice. It's got a map of the county of Surrey as the front end papers. I'm not sure if they're on the back. Yeah, it's on the back as well. County of Surrey, so the same thing. This was published by Macmillan and Company, 1950. It's by Eric Parker with illustrations by Hugh Thompson, and this is the Hugh Thompson that Amy at the Dusty Bookshelf has come across in her J.M. Barrie collecting. He did a lot of color illustrations as well as line drawings, pen drawings, or not sure if you'd call them etchings. They're more, just drawings, like pen drawings or line drawings. And he seems to be prolific, and he, I believe, illustrated all these books. Every time I've seen one or heard of one, it's always Hugh Thompson is the illustrator. And there's one on the front. He is fantastic, and it's just spattered throughout a whole bunch. And the other one is Highways and Byways in London by L. Greggs. Is the other two. Oh, wait a minute. Highways and Byways in London by Mrs. E.T. Cook. Illustrations by Hugh Thompson and F.L. Griggs. Oh, okay. So I'm not sure which is which. Wouldn't take much to figure out the styles. But yeah, this is the Highways and Byways of London. The river rambles in the city, St. Paul's and its precincts, the Tower, Suffolk and Old and New, Inns of Court, East and West, Westminster, and so on and so forth. So that is 2 more for sort of the collection, but that'll go obviously in my London collection, that one. The other ones, there was the Scottish Borders was by forgotten his name now. He collected the fairy tale. Sorry, the mind is a total blank at the moment. But I don't have his fairy stories. I've got his essays, which I really like, his book collecting stuff. I can't think of his name now, but then Evie Lucas did one as well, so hence I got those. This I saw actually on Steve Donahue's channel just within a week or so. He picked this up at, I think, a different edition, but the memoirs of John Addington Simmons, um, at his Brownell Bookshop in Boston, and I thought, oh, that's interesting. I have to keep an eye out for that because I do really, really like Simmons' writing. A friend of mine who bought, like, I think it was a 3 volume set, a 3 or 4 volume set of his sketches in Italy, in Greece. And I picked it up and started reading it. I really, really loved style of writing. And they were from like 1916, 18 or something like that. But they'd never been read because the pages were uncut. So I was the first person reading them, cutting the pages as I went. And I liked that so much that I found out that he wrote a 7 volume sort Renaissance series. So I've purchased that. I have not really dug into that much anymore, but I will eventually because I really like his writing. And then I thought, oh, this is kind of nice to see because I wasn't aware of it actually until Steve showed it. Another biography type is J.B. Priestley by Vincent Broom. It's a substantial biography. It is no, just over 500 pages. I thought it would have been more than that. It's Hamish Hamilton, published 1988, and I do like J.B. Priestley's writing. Over the years since I've been here in the UK, well, I've read a bit in Canada, but since I've been here in the UK, I've picked up some old, mostly ratty hardcovers, and I've read them and thoroughly enjoyed his writing, and I just wish I picked up more because I had chances to do that, and I didn't. I didn't take them. Here's another London book. It's called The Book of the City, edited by Ian Norrie. It is a collection of essays about the square mile, the city. And it's got street plan. And there's quite a few. Well, if you know that it's High Hill Books, published in 1961, and some may recognize several names, but it's, as I say, edited by Ian Norrie, photographs by Edwin Smith, who was familiar books at the time, and drawings by Ronald Saxby. But names like Olive Cook, Leonard Cottrell, Ernest Atkinson, Desmond Heap. These are ones that are sort of known to me. J.W.T. Cooper, Ivor Brown, David Holloway. They were sort of names. There were a lot of books written in the 50s and 60s. So that will go with my London collection again. And I will be reading a few of those essays now, actually. And another writer I thoroughly enjoy, Elspeth Huxley. And this is a biography by C.S. Nichols. And it's running into close to 500 pages. And I didn't know this existed. But it looks like that Nichols was an editor for the Dictionary of National Biography. That's right there behind me. And as well as he's done David Livingstone, which I've mentioned so far already, and the Swahili Coast book, and something called Cataract in 1985. So I'm assuming that's probably some of the cataracts, maybe in along the Nile. But no, this should be interesting. If the name sounds familiar to you and you can't place it, it's sort of Flame Trees Atheka, Mottled Lizard, Red Strangers. She was English, but her family went to Kenya in sort of pre-World War One, and were they grew coffee, and there's a fabulous 1980s little miniseries called Flame Trees Atheka. that's based on her book, and it's really good. It's got my mind is a bit shredded at the moment. Um, Haley Mills as the mother, and I forget who played Elspeth. Um, but anyway, no, it was really good. It was very enjoyable, and it's worth another watch at some point. I'll get. And two books by one of my favorite sort of modernish authors is John Mortimer, Clinging to the Wreckage, A Part of Life. It's a hardcover, obviously, and I couldn't pass these up. I do want to collect his Rumpole in hardcover if I possibly can. But this is 1982 by Weinfeld and Nicholson. And character parts is Viking, 1986. And there's interviews that appeared in, it says here, in the Sunday Times. Um, yeah, it says his interviews, unique quality and command and enthusiastic following of Christine Keeler, Neil Kinnock, Lord Scarman, Edward Heath, Raquel Welch. So yeah, just Alec Guinness, Boy George, Lord Shinwell, Duke of Westminster, David Lloyd Cecil, Peter Nichols, Gloria Vanderbilt, William Golding, Andre Previn, Anton Morrisman, Lord Scarman, as mentioned, Norman Tebbit. So these are quite interesting. I remember having this back in Canada on both these, so they'll be sort of interesting rereads. So that's sort of where it is, BookTube. Some new books, much more than I was sort of hoping to actually get. It was more of a day to get out, even though I wasn't fully recovered enough to do that. But I'm glad I did. And yeah, I just have to now find place for almost 20 books, which I didn't want to. I wanted to just get a couple books, but that's easier said than done, as I think most would agree. But I have work to do over the next few days. Not work. This is sort of here, moving things and getting a few bookcases up and starting to tack the piles and piles of books that I have here that I need to get shelving. So I will say goodbye there for now, BookTube. There are a couple of book tags I need to do. I'm behind. Jason Harrigan tagged me into one called, I think it's Do You Believe? I think it is. It's an X-Files type, or based on the X-Files questions. And Steve Donahue tagged me into the Nosy book tag with extra questions that he's created. So I will try to get to those over the next few days, as well as read the last chapter in A. Edward Newton's The Amenities of Book Collecting. I will see you later, BookTube. Thank you. Bye.